Follow me on a journey where no one has ever been before. Listen to TheCaliEffect.
Good evening, YouTube. You guys are now watching another segment of TheCaliEffect. Today, we're going to be going over 5 of the most underrated decks this format and more than likely next format as well, because these decks are so off the map that I don't know, I guess people just sleep on them. These decks are really good and they definitely deserve a place in the meta. Now, for entertainment purposes, I'm not going to rave about Battle Guard, Artifact, Trap Tricks. I'm not going to rave about Yang Zings because I've already talked about those decks before. So we're going to go on to 5 other decks that I have not talked about, but that definitely deserve some recognition. Well, the 5th one really isn't a deck that I did not mention. It's Monarchs. Now, Monarchs have a very interesting thing going on for them. Well, first, they have 6 cards. They have 6 cards that can tribute your opponent's monsters. They have the ability to tribute on your opponent's turn, or to tribute someone on your opponent's turn. And their effects are really good. Caius removes from play a monster, or removes from play a card on the side of the field, and if it just so happens to be Shadow Window or any other dark monster, your opponent will take 1,000 damage. Rita can spin a card to the top of the opponent's deck, and sometimes when you're spinning monsters to the top of your opponent's deck, they can be dead draws. Mobius destroys back row, but that's not the only thing Monarchs have going for them. They have Majestus Fiend, which is searchable. They have Vanity's Fiend, which stops special summons, and they have Lightning Darkness Dragon, which continuously negates the opponent's spells and traps. Now, there's a really good thing going on for Monarchs. The deck does not special summon, so in that sense, since your monsters are tribute summoned, your opponent's Shadow Fusion doesn't really go off that well. Their Winda is practically useless. Their Construct does get to send cards from the deck to the graveyard, but the only real useful one is Dragon, and Dragon only destroys back row, something the deck doesn't really play much of. So when you're playing against Monarchs, I feel like they have a strong matchup against Shadow Owls, and that's why a lot of players use Caius in their Shadow Owl builds, because the card is just so good it can overwhelm the other side of the opponent. Even Burning Abyss run from this type of deck, because the main Monarchs are getting rid of the cards in non-graveyard situations. This deck really has potential to shine. The next deck would be Girgia. Now, you guys wouldn't think Girgia to be a popular deck anymore because of the ban list. Well, the only thing I can tell you about Girgia, or the biggest thing I can tell you about Girgia, is that they are far from dead. Not only are they getting new support in a structure deck, which comes with Girgia Augur and a whole bunch of other great cards just to boost them, they're still the HBIC, and that's right, I said the head bitch in charge. This deck is really good. It has the ability to bring out continuous rank 4 monsters at will and just overwhelm the opponent, and that's like anything it has going. That's like the best thing it has going for him. Since Girgia Armor is face down and it doesn't really require a special summon in itself, the deck really doesn't special summon that much. It can definitely stop whenever it wants to and then just go into a Girgia Armor play, or it can definitely just keep on proceeding and go off and even OTK the opponent if given the opportunity. This deck is extremely flexible, and it just has so many options. I think that the ability to run tons of back row, anything to anti-meta stun your opponent, and then the fact that Girgia Armor is just a +1 every single turn, that coupled with a lot of monsters don't get over Girgia Armor in this meta, it's a really good deck. But I think what really pushes the deck forward is that it can use those stun cards like Macro, Cosmos, and DeFi and not be that much of affected by it, because Macro, Cosmos, and DeFi hurt so many other decks. It's just insane. The next deck would be Worms. Now, what you talking about, Cali? You mean worms? Like the insect type worms? Or you mean dungeon worm deck? Oh, you must mean Cosmic Dragon. You're lying. You're talking about Yang Zings again. No, I mean worms. I mean hidden arsenal out of the space that we talked about in Dual Terminal Worm. Now, there's a couple of reasons why this deck can be extremely good. First of all, its engine is very flexible. In most builds, you only use 2 Kataros, 3 X, 3 Y, and Worm King. So with that being said, you have so much room to put other cards in there. Here comes the Trap Tricks, and here comes the Hands. Something that really helps balance the deck and gives it the synergy that it needs. This deck is just awesome. But I'm going to focus the biggest point on why. Now, Yagan is an extremely good card. When it's flip face up, it bounces an opponent's monster to their hand. So X sends Y to the graveyard. Y special summons itself to the side of the field, and voila, you have an instant out to Shadow Winder. You have an instant out to Burning Abyss Dante. You have an instant out to any rank 4 play that the opponent does decide to pull off, especially since Castell can't hit it and Unark can't hit it. Their only out to it that I can think of right now is Diamond Direwolf, and well, Diamond Direwolf kind of takes care of the problem itself, so it's not even that much of a problem. This deck is built on gaining tons and tons of advantage over the opponent, and it does that really well. I haven't even got to Worm Nebulite, the card that when it flips all your Worms face-up monster, you draw a card for each card, and then you activate your Worms effects too. So Kataroses, Yagans, they get all their effects. You get to add, or you get to search and then bounce the opponent's cards. Then you get to draw. Oh wait, did I forget the special? Did I forget to mention that you get to special summon Worm King? And Worm King is a very interesting card. By treating any of your reptile worm monsters, you get to destroy a card on the field. So that, coupled up with his huge body, and you know, the fact that you just plussed off of him so, plus by summoning him so much, I mean, I think that's pretty good. This deck has an extraordinary matchup against the top decks, like I said, Burning Abyss, Shadows, Satellanites, and I think it's a really good sleeper. The only problem is that the hands are not as good as they used to be, but I think the deck can still recover from that. Next would be Evols. Now, I don't know where this deck fell off the map from, and I don't know why people don't think that Dolka is one of the best Xyzs in the game, because it is. Dolka completely negates monster effects, and to make matters worse with Evols, it takes one card to do it. It's only one trap card, and you get the special summon instant Dolka. A lot of people have been saying, well, the new rule kind of ruined them because they need that 6 cards opening turn, and they also need to open up really well. But that's nonetheless, anytime you can special summon a monster that can negate at least 2 monster effects, so that means I'm stronger than El Shadow Winder, or I'm as strong as, how much attack is El Shadow Winder? Well, it's pairing up right here, and here's Dolka. So I'm either stronger or as strong as El Shadow Winder. I can negate any of your Shadow Monsters effects. I can negate any of the Burning Abyss effects, no matter where they are. I can negate Altair, which pretty much screws you over, and destroy it. I can negate cards in hand. I can negate any monster effect, and I have a 2300 body. Not only that, it took me a trap card, Evil Singularity, to summon. Like, that's it. That's all I had to do was invest 1 trap card into this monster. That's broke. And that's what I really think will put this deck over the hump, because it's just so good in that aspect. And they also have monsters that destroy back row. They have monsters that special summon themselves from the grave. They have a searcher monster, but primarily what Evols is really built for, should be built for in this format, is Dolka, because Dolka is one of the best cards and probably one of the best Xyzs into the game. Now, the last monster. Can I get a drum roll? The last deck that I wanted to talk about is Prophecy. Why has this deck been so... This deck has been just so overlooked. Just because its ability to fate anything, and people were like, no, fate is at 1. It doesn't matter. I'm sorry, if I fate your Constellar Pleiades, if I fate your El Shadow Winder, if I fate your top monster, and remove it from play, and then I get to recycle it back to my deck, I mean, it doesn't really matter. The only thing that was stopping Prophecies, I guess, would be the hands. But since the hands are decreasing in popularity due to these other archetype decks just being completely unaffected by it, Prophecies have a huge possibility of coming back and just dominating a format. The irony behind Prophecy is that they've hit this deck so hard with Fate to 1 and Spellbook Judgment to 0, and people just completely forgot about it. And since you don't take account to Prophecy, because there are a couple of great side cards against it, but since people don't take account into it, they don't side for it. Since they don't side for it, Prophecy has an extremely strong chance to surprise even a YCS level event and come away with a steal, because the deck is just so good, and it does revolve around Fate, but you really can't stop the card, period. There's not much that can be said about the card. Little Boy grabs your spellbooks. You just go through your spellbooks, and I think the next big thing would be Spellbook Tower. Not a lot of people main deck Mystical Space Typhoon anymore, so more often than not, when you're activating Spellbook Tower, it will sit there, and if it does get destroyed by a card effect like Dragon or just anything else, you more than likely will be able to retain its effect. So I think that's a huge aspect that that people forget. And Prophecy can really be that deck that can just sheerly dominate over decks, because it just has that ability to continuously gain advantage through tower, banish the opponent's cards without targeting through fate, and then just set up with so much back row. They have High Priestess of Prophecy that just says, screw your Shadow Winder, I don't need to destroy you, I'm stronger than you. The deck does not special summon, so it's like, okay. And it particularly doesn't have too many bad matchups. I mean, the only bad matchup the deck is itself opening really bad. There is a couple of new cards that you could try out with. Mathematician to send Stoic to grab your card. There's a couple of things you can mess around with. So the deck is definitely not definitive. And that's what I really love about Prophecy. Well, those are 5 decks that are extremely underrated. Thank you guys for watching another segment of the Cali Effect. Please like, comment, subscribe. But most of all, enjoy.